How you all doing, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you're having a fantastic day. So we're here today with World War II Oversimplified Part 1. And I know what some of you guys are thinking. This was supposed to come out multiple days ago, wasn't it? Because I said originally that the plan was for me to do World War I Oversimplified Part 1, then Part 2, and then World War II Oversimplified Part 1, then Part 2, and one day after another. But that didn't quite work out. I basically took, like, after I recorded World War I was like, okay, I'll record World War II tomorrow. That was the plan originally, and then my throat started hurting me, so I was like, so my throat is starting to hurt me, what should I do? Should I record, or shall I take it easy? And obviously with everything that's going on right now, you don't exactly know what could be the source for the throat kind of hurting. I was like, yeah, let me just take it easy, and as you can probably tell, I am much better right now, because I can actually speak. That's the key thing, I can actually speak without my throat doing a, Lombardi disco, I don't know. Doing the Macarena. So here we are with World War II Oversimplified Part 1. Now I did mention this during my World War 1, if you haven't seen that one, so just check it out. But I did mention that during my World War 1 Oversimplified video, that when it comes to like wars, when it comes to general history, the two world wars are the things that I am like the least knowledgeable about. Primarily because World War II specifically, I learned a lot about in school. And the general gist of it was always like Nazis bad, the UK was, good, UK victorious, so on and so forth. Just like it almost felt like propaganda more than anything. And I, personally, I care more about like why things happened, why things got to where they did. And it almost felt like we didn't really have that in history in school. So I really hated World War II in history. I really hated World War II in school while I was studying history in school. So that's actually the big. That's actually the big reason why I decided not to pursue history, further than just your normal regular high school. Primarily because I hated it so much in high school. Otherwise, I might have done a major in that, but alas, I did not. So, World War II. I mean, what do we know? Shall I just hop right into the video? What I know is not much, right? It's just like the basic things. Hitler's rise to power. Germany. Speaking of Germany, I have a nice little beer mug, from Munich actually. I don't know what you can tell it, but from Munich actually. A nice little beer mug, not mug, but glass, I guess. But yeah, Hitler's rise to power. Germany obviously a big mess after World War I, and some decisions that were made. Somebody actually commented on my World War I Part 2 video that like the Treaty of Versailles was actually considered to be good. Now I'm not sure. I've not done any research in that, research on that, of course. But like from what I always understood was the Treaty of Versailles was always very, very bad, and that's ultimately what led to the rise of Hitler. But again, I've not done enough research into that to counter that comment, that claim. So I'm just gonna say, interesting. Could very well be true. I mean, I'm assuming it's true, but like from what I knew prior to that, it's very simple that it was always treated as like a very bad thing. Then ultimately, France gets taken over through the Blitzkrieg. England, the whole never surrender, and then ultimately with the aid of what's the guy's name? I live in Manchester, right? And like about 3 minutes from my house is the road named after the Alan Turing. That's Alan Turing Road. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Alan Turing, who obviously built the crypter, the decoder. I don't know the exact phrasing of it, but like he built a machine, that essentially decoded the German. You could really say it was like the first PC, I guess. But he basically decoded the Germans' their secret code. And they were able to constantly, decode it, but obviously they couldn't really act upon that, because if they did, then they would find out that, well, you've decoded the code, so we're just gonna abandon it, so that kind of thing. If you have not seen the movie, you should check out Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. Very, very good movie in my opinion. Again, Benedict Cumberbatch, one of those actors that can really do anything. But let's not make this video take too long. This World War II Oversimplified Part 1. Let us begin. As you all know, for those guys that have been here for a while, I will be pausing it between these. You know, whenever I have something interesting to say, which probably won't be much, but I will be pausing it. So yeah, let's hop right in.
This video was made possible by Skillshare.
Also, before we start, I mean, we kind of already started, but check out the original video from Oversimplified. I'll have the link in the description. I'll have the link to the video in the description and in the comment section down below. So you know, they obviously put all the time and effort into it. So please go ahead and check their original video out. Because quite frankly, I'm only reacting to it / giving a commentary to it. So I'm not really doing the hard work. They have, I guess. They have done the hard work, so please go ahead and check them out. Which is why we will not be editing out like their sponsors or their end sponsors, or whatever, because quite frankly, they deserve every cent, every penny that they make from this.
Churchill was a man with many talents. He was an artist, a butterfly enthusiast, and he had an unpublished manuscript about aliens. Clearly, he was a man with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Maybe he could have loaded up his computer and logged onto Skillshare, an online learning community.
That's how they're tying it together.
Classes in design, business, technology, and more. Perhaps he was considering a side career in fashion, but didn't know where to start. On Skillshare, he would find courses in fashion design and garment construction. Or if he wanted to learn app design, improve his photography, or just how to make a really good
My hair is an actual mess, but I can't get a haircut.
All of these and more on Skillshare.
Quarantine days.
Skillshare gives you access to high-quality classes taught by genuine experts working in their
music theory, really? I might check it out.
And I was genuinely blown away by
my music theory actually sucks.
To me. Like this class full of tips and tricks for creating vector art, or this one for creating character walk cycles. For an annual subscription, Skillshare is under $10 a month. And if you'd like to try it out first, then I've got a deal just for Oversimplified viewers. The first 1,000 people to use this link, which can be found in the description,
that link
get their first 2 months
is already gone.
for just 99 cents. Be sure to try it out using the link in the description and learn something new today. Now, without further ado,
let's get started. Let us begin.
It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland for military service. He gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating a violent overthrow of European monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy.
The rise of fascism.
Returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes back to Italy again, completes his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist.
Okay.
His speeches and journalistic abilities made him famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so when Italy colonized Libya in 1910, he rioted and got arrested.
Of course.
Then World War I came along, and once again he protested.
No war.
But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war. But his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. Conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian people, just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go with bold.
Well there, Mr. Mussolini. Was it the first... I mean, obviously they're portraying as like the first great, you know, let's put that in quotations, like the first big fascist leader in that roughly that time period. But I'm just trying to think of like who else was like big, a big fascist with a lot of power in those days before him. And I'm not sure. Obviously, there's a lot of people that come after him, but like before him, I can't think of anyone. Like you know, outright. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know.
Italy had been on the winner's side in World War One, and they hoped they were going to get a lot out of it, but in the end, they only got a little, and they felt cheated. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that the Italian people were a little unhappy. So when Mussolini came along and said that he could fix everything, his fascist movement gained a lot of support. In 1922, he went to the king and said, "Make me prime minister, or I'll make me prime minister." And the king said, "You and what army?" "This army."
Power. Power.
Then he went
Power.
to establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe
That's
had
the
its
look.
first fascist.
That is the look that I associate with Mussolini. Like the militaristic look, sort of with like all the medals and whatnot. That's always the look that I associate with him.
Dictator. Next up,
Ildus.
Germany had been on the loser's side, and they got absolutely wrecked by the Treaty of Versailles. They lost territory, had to demilitarize the Rhineland, had to reduce their army to just 100,000 men, couldn't have an air force, had to pay the Allies a huge amount of money that it didn't have, and a new rule was established that every Englishman withheld the right to walk into the center of Berlin, pick out any German they wanted, and spank the hell out of them. I made that last one up, but it helps you understand how all of this felt to Germany.
Alright, fair
On
enough.
top of that, bad economy and weak governments meant that when a small angry man with a silly mustache came along and said that he could fix everything, the German people loved him.
Of course.
He was a soldier during World War One, and he was crazy patriotic.
Wait. That's the Belgium flag, right? Right? I'm like 99% sure this is like the Belgium flag. Germany's black, red, gold. This is black, gold, red. Am I wrong here? No, I've seen enough football to know what a Germany flag is. I'm like 99% sure that's wrong. Maybe like, you know, the pre-World War II flag, that was the German flag. I don't know, okay, but I'm like 99% sure this is wrong.
Better than him about Germany's humiliation.
No. Sorry. The pre-World War II German flag had like an eagle in it, if I'm correct. Might still have an eagle in it. No, it doesn't have an eagle in it, but it had an eagle in it pre-World War II. I'm like 99% sure, and so that's definitely wrong.
A new political party, and in 1923 attended a march on Munich with his boys. And then he got arrested. But his popularity grew and grew,
Beer
and in
hall push.
1933 the president made him chancellor. He believed he was Germany's great destined savior, and he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had fascist dictator number 2.
That's of course the look
Hitler
that you
and Mussolini
associate
had a
with
lot of
Hitler.
the same ideas, but more importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along. Anyone else want to be friends? Franco? No? You good? I do. Who's that? It's Japan, and they've taken over northern China. Let's rewind a bit.
Manchukuo.
Japan had isolated itself from the rest of the world for over 200 years until the Americans showed up and said, "You're going to trade with us and you're going to like it." Then the Western powers imposed a bunch of unequal treaties, meaning Japan's economy was bust. They also had no natural resources, so they decided to go get
Rubber.
some. They went to war with China to gain a sphere of influence over Korea, and they took a bunch of China's stuff. But then the West said, "Hey, cut that out." And since Japan couldn't take on the West, they said, "Okay, I guess we'll just go." Wait a minute, what are you doing? Taking advantage of a weakened China and setting up spheres of influence. But I was the one who weakened them. We know. And you guys didn't let me have anything. We know. That seems unfair. We don't think so. Okay, see ya. So Japan.
This right here is how you make enemies. Obviously, they're oversimplifying it. Well, this video series is called Oversimplified. I mean, yeah, but like, yeah, this is how you make yourself enemies. It's just a fact of life. Don't, just because you have military power, don't treat. They don't do it. Well, they still do it, but not through military power, more so through economic power nowadays. But like back then, it was specifically with military power. We don't treat other nations like that, basically, because you're gonna make some enemies. That's all I'm gonna say to that.
Japan thought, screw this, and went to war with Russia, and stunned everyone by actually winning. Then they fully annexed Korea, but they didn't stop there. In World War I, they took Germany's colonies and islands in Asia, and then in an incident that was maybe staged by the Japanese army, a bomb blew up a Japanese train in Manchuria, giving them an excuse to launch an invasion and take over. So here's the situation.
There you go.
Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Japan all believe they're racially superior, all feel hostility towards the Allies, and all want to militarize and take over more stuff.
There you
so
go.
they did. Let's start with Germany. Hitler hated the Treaty of Versailles, and now he was ready to begin undoing it. In complete violation of the treaty, the first Luftwaffe squadrons were sent.
You know what, right? World War II was stupid. I know you can say that about literally all wars, but it was stupid, right? Here you have this treaty, right? And you're like, Germany, you will do this and this and this and this. And then they literally ignore everything that's in the treaty, and you don't do anything. There is no punishment that's following. So of course, someone in Hitler's position, he was like, treaty of Versailles. Who cares? Without any punishment, without any reprimand, of course he'll continue. And ultimately he grew, and then it became unstoppable. Could have all been avoided if, he actually stuck to it. It's like all these treaties and all these conventions, they never really... Some of them are stuck to, like the Berne Convention, for example, which is, about copyright and trademark and so on and so forth. But, like, in general, they're always a short-term solution. Also, speaking about the last part that I mentioned, before you had countries establish dominance through military force, but nowadays it's, I would say, through economic power and economic force. Really, that's how the stability in Europe has been maintained for, 70, 80 odd years now. Well, 90 odd years. I guess we're pushing it close to that now. Primarily, because of the EA, and then obviously the EU and so on and so forth. And it's actually pretty interesting. Like after the war, again, I don't know that much about the war, but like after the war and then how everything kind of like settled down and how the countries kind of like bonded together and all that kind of good stuff. It's very fascinating. The economic aspect is very, very fascinating.
Set up, conscription was introduced, and he pimped up his army. The Allies did nothing. Then Hitler sent his army back into the demilitarized Rhineland, giving orders to immediately retreat if the Allies showed up. The Allies did nothing. With his military re-strengthened, he could now move on to step 2. He wanted to rapidly increase the Aryan population, and to do so, he needed Lebensraum. Or in other words, he would have to take over the world. But
Simple.
for now, a good portion of Europe would do, and he began eyeing up his neighbors. The Allies finally started to get worried, so they implemented a fairly useless diplomatic strategy called appeasement, and it went a little something like this. Hitler would say, I want that thing, and the Allies would say, you can't have that thing. Okay, you can have that thing, but no more. I want that thing. And repeat. In 1938, Hitler's army marched into Austria, and just took it, with no resistance.
I get that, you don't want to start a new world war, but then look, obviously hindsight is 2020, but then look what happened afterwards, They got the Lebensraum, the living space, committed atrocities, and then you step in when you feel threatened. But when all this was going on, it's like, we're not seeing. You turn on blind eyes, because hypocritical.
Boom, this is Germany now. Next, he demanded to be given the Sudetenland, an area of Czechoslovakia with many ethnic Germans. The Allies held a meeting with Hitler in Munich and said, look, we're going to give you what... Hang on. This meeting is about my territory. Shouldn't I come to the meeting too? Anyway, we're going to give you what you want. Really? Yeah.
Power.
Just like that? Yep. What's the catch? Just sign this piece of paper promising you won't invade the rest of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Then Chamberlain returned home victorious,
Yeah,
a signed piece of paper in the air, declaring crisis to be averted and the continuation of world peace. And we built a statue of Chamberlain in his honor. And every day on the 30th of September, we celebrate Chamberlain Day. Hitler's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia.
Precisely.
What? He's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia.
Precisely.
You lied to me.
Yeah.
What do you expect? I'm Hitler. Not to be outdone, Mussolini also wanted to get in on the action. He thought to himself, isn't there a not yet colonized nation somewhere which is so underdeveloped that the people would be defending themselves against our tanks with literal bows and arrows and wooden spears? Oh, there is? Fantastic.
Who's
and
that?
So he took it. Italy also wanted to control the
Abyssinia?
Adriatic Sea.
I'm
so they
not
occupied
sure I've
the
ever heard of that country.
Then, in another incident which was maybe staged by the Japanese, gunfire was exchanged by Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge. And the Japanese launched yet another invasion against China. They swept through Beijing and Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking. It was here that saw the worst of Japan's shocking atrocities committed against the Chinese people.
Yeah, world is just...
Back in Europe, Germany...
World wars are just kind of crazy.
...official by signing the Pact of Steel. Then, Hitler turned his eyes towards Poland and the hated Polish corridor, splitting Germany in two. At this point, the Allies really had to put their foot down.
Yeah.
And the invasion of Poland would mean war. Hitler had planned to continue his advance eastward, but he didn't want to end up fighting a war on two fronts. So for now, he made an alliance with Stalin, saying, how about we both invade Poland and split it between the two of us? And I definitely won't not refrain from not betraying you sometime in the future.
How did that work out?
Sounds
good. Perfect. Grandiose.
This new alliance stung the West. On the 1st of September 1939, German troops entered Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany.
Yeah.
The Poles fought hard, but they were no match for the two giants crashing down on them from either side.
Of course not.
Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much. The French had launched a small invasion into the Saarland, but they maintained mostly defensive positions, and after a while decided to just turn around and call it a day. Speaking of France, the French were still super proud of their victory in World War I, and they hadn't really moved on from it. They still used horses, they dispatched messages by motorbike instead of using radio. Orders from the commander-in-chief were usually pretty vague.
Definitely not good.
Troops were rarely inspected. They built a
Definitely
line of
not
defenses along
good.
the German border, but didn't bother extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against. In a war, they didn't want to attack the enemy. And
I'm sorry, right? They're painting France in a really, really bad picture here. And yes, okay, I can kind of understand why. But without having more knowledge, I can't really rebuttal it. But it feels a little bit over-exaggerated, maybe for the humour. And I'm sure it wasn't that bad, right? I'm sure it wasn't that bad. Where they were constantly drunk, there was no inspections going on, there was no, there was no advancements from World War One, so on and so forth, and they weren't prepared to shoot or anything, despite having declared war. I'm sure it wasn't that bad, right? Somebody, please correct me, but please tell me that I'm right, that it wasn't as bad as Oversimplified are portraying it right now.
And at first the UK wasn't much better. Chamberlain still naively hoped that the war could be ended diplomatically. Instead of bombing raids, the RAF dropped propaganda leaflets over German cities, which one air marshal said likely did nothing but provide the continent with toilet paper for the duration of the war. They also only sent 200,000 men to France, while the French had mobilized millions. Both Britain and France wanted to avoid a repeat of the First World War, and so they wanted to keep the war as far from home as possible. So they turned their eyes north, towards Norway.
Okay.
Neutral Sweden was exporting iron ore to Germany through neutral Norway, so the Allies asked them if they could please stop exporting iron ore to Germany, but this request was refused. Then the Soviet Union attacked Finland, so the Allies said, how about we land troops in Norway and move them across Sweden to go help out your good pal Finland, and along the way maybe take control of all your influence. But Norway and Sweden still said no. So the UK mined the waters around Norway to force any transport ships into international waters, and they also attacked a German tanker they found in the area.
Really?
Hitler realized what the Allies were up to, and he quickly moved to secure his supply of iron ore. He launched an invasion through Denmark into Norway. The Allies rushed to land troops at key ports along the coast, but Germany had taken control of Norway's airfield, and their air superiority decided the fight.
Victory.
The Allies had to retreat. After this slightly embarrassing failure, Chamberlain resigned, and was replaced with Winston Churchill, who had a...
I didn't actually know about the Norway battle. That's interesting. The Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, whatnot, that they were basically involved. I did not know that at all. When you think of World War, you always think of UK, France, Germany, Russia, I guess later on then as well, Japan and the US of A. Italy sort of, but not as much really. But I never actually thought about that. Never even heard of it. So that's great bit of knowledge there. Great bit of knowledge I've just acquired.
A slightly different approach to dealing with the Germans. Hitler's overall strategy was similar to Germany's First World War strategy. Attack France, defeat France, knocking out the UK in the process, then turn on the Soviet Union and win the war. During the Phony War, the Allies had given Hitler time to prepare his forces. Now, he was ready to attack. The Allies had wanted to place troops in Belgium, but Belgium had refused, and in a move that surprised pretty much no one, Hitler launched an invasion to overrun France's defenses. The Allies charged into Belgium at full speed to meet the German invasion head-on, and it looked like a repeat of the First World War was coming.
Blitzkrieg.
This time, Hitler had a trick up his sleeve. Blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward, slowing down the Allies. Then,
Precisely.
to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty underdefended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through and encircled the Allied armies.
And then Dunkirk.
The best of the Allied forces were now trapped. The Germans squeezed in from all sides, taking out France's best armies and nearly wiping out the British too. But they managed to make a desperate last-minute escape at Dunkirk, with British civilian ships even making the perilous journey to bring their young men home.
Great movie
With
too.
most of the French forces depleted, the Germans breezed through, taking Paris, and France fell. What the Germans couldn't do in World War I, Hitler had done just like that. Hitler hoped that with the fall of France, the UK would also lose hope and sue for peace. But
Very
quite
good
normally,
strategy.
It didn't, and he needed to secure the Western Front, so he
Carry
tried
on.
to force them into submission
fighting.
with mind games. The UK were now all alone, and Hitler wanted to emphasize that. First of all, just before France fell, Italy finally declared war on the Allies, making the UK's situation even worse. Next, instead of just occupying all of France, Hitler occupied the coastal areas for defense, but allowed France to continue its existence as a German puppet state. This way, it looked like the UK's old ally had decided to switch sides. Hitler also hoped that the UK wouldn't attack any of the old allies' navy bases or colonies in Africa, giving Hitler an extra line of defense to the south. But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it. Hitler then began laying down plans for an invasion of Great Britain. Before German troops could land on British soil, he would first need air and naval superiority across the Channel. Waves of German bombers came, while the completely outnumbered RAF worked bravely around the clock in an attempt to quell the German attacks.
They did it,
At first,
somehow.
The Luftwaffe targeted British ports and coastal facilities. Then it attacked RAF bases, crippling the RAF's ability to defend the nation. And it looked like Hitler's Great British Invasion was coming. But then, Churchill ordered a small, pretty insignificant bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious, and he immediately ordered the Luftwaffe to refocus its attacks on civilian targets in London. Children were sent off to the countryside, away from their parents to avoid danger, and frequent trips to air raid shelters became a daily occurrence.
Yeah,
The
that's...
British morale held firm, smiling, knitting, lounging.
That is the
casually,
part that
as people have balls of steel. This
I was always impressed
London
about.
also gave the RAF breathing space to reorganize, so Hitler kind of shot himself in the foot there. Just the foot for now.
Okay.
Finally, the Luftwaffe sent one massive all-out attack on London, and the RAF successfully repelled it, destroying many of the German aircraft and placing air superiority firmly in British hands. Hitler's invasion had to be postponed, but the bombing of British cities continued for some time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was part one. Part one of a very interesting video. Part two, you can obviously see America is getting involved. China has a big focus. But yeah, there's a lot of... watching this has made me realize there are a lot of moments where war could have been avoided, or maybe war could have been had on a much smaller scale. But it was just a lot of, I don't want to say cowardice, but a lot of hesitant politicians that kind of like didn't stop the threat before it became too big, and then luckily, you know, at the end they won, they destroyed the threat. But just in general aspect, you know, it definitely could have gone different. I feel like it definitely could have gone different, and ultimately, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what part two, because there was a lot of information in this part that I didn't know, so I actually want to watch part two and maybe find out more things that I don't know. Now Churchill, obviously a big popular name that a lot of people associated with World War II. I actually like the focus on Mussolini as well, because obviously he is a very well-known figure, but like he isn't like, when you think of when you think, well, I can only speak for myself, I guess, but speaking in third person about myself, when I think well, now I'm saying in first person, when I think about World War II, I generally always think about you know, Hitler, Winston Churchill. There's a few other things that I think about, but I think like those are more related to part two. Obviously, the Emperor, Japanese Emperor, as well as obviously the atom bomb. There's a lot of like little things like that I think about. Obviously Albert Einstein as well, huge name. As I said before, you had Alan Turing, who I basically know from the movie, but also know because the street is like right around my corner, essentially. There's like a massive street right around my corner with his name, and I really enjoyed the Imitation Game movie. But there's like a lot of like little things like that I'm just like, yeah, World War II was obviously complex and is obviously oversimplifying it, but it still has a lot of information, which I'm always very happy and very glad about when I'm watching this. Now there is one thing that I actually, while watching this, thought to myself, I really want to, you know, watch more on, or watch something on, I guess, and then learn more from, and that is Genghis Khan. Because at one point they mentioned, you know, Japan the Marco Polo bridge, I believe, incident, and I'm like, Marco Polo, Genghis Khan. Ooh, that would be an interesting video now, wouldn't it? A little bit more of things that I'm a lot more familiar with, that time period. So that might be something coming up in the future. But as for now, this was part 1 of Oversimplified World War II. Part 2 will be coming out tomorrow. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a nice day. Peace out, and